so that I can ensure that everything is connected well. We are talking about time bias this morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, leaders. Thank you for joining me this morning with your cup of coffee. My name is Mary May. I'm a leadership strategist helping you pull back that curtain so that you can level up successfully and be able to reach your goals unapologetically and in less time. And so each and every Tuesday morning, we come together to have the conversation around there various things that I come across in working with clients and helping them level up in their career and helping them to identify what are some of the strengths, some of the challenges, things that's kind of giving them handcuffs in the workplace situation where they feel that they have limits or they're not reaching that potential for a raise or a promotion. And we help you identify what are some of the real things that people really are not talking about that you're dealing with in that boardroom, in that conversation with your supervisor and your boss. But as a leadership strategist, when we come and we chat each and every Tuesday morning in your morning commute or as you're preparing for your day, um, before you make any decision, be mindful to come with your cup of coffee or tea. Some people have smoothies, and let's chat. So, as I shared, each and every Tuesday we come together to have this conversation, and my purpose is to help you recognize barriers that are roadblocks in your navigation as a leader in everyday conversations. And in doing such, it is to have that real talk conversation, provide you with the resources so that you can not only level up, but understand what are the patterns that have been in your life that have impacted you in a variety of different ways. So today we are talking about time bias. Time bias. So a lot of times when we think about time, when we're setting our tone, setting our intentions for what it is that we have to complete, we sometimes do we believe we're multitasking, but sometimes the multitasking and or procrastination can show up as either you're thriving or you're robbing yourself of time of ways in which you could be productive. And so the ways in which you could be productive is usually hidden by the fact of believing that you are having success with multitasking and not procrastinating. But anytime that you delay or put a structure in place, there's a level of procrastination, there's a level of pause. And usually, when you're procrastinating, it's a sign of not being prepared or not acknowledging all of the resources that you may need or benefit from. And that will be the reason why you may end up going into a robbing situation instead of thriving. So, in the chat, out all the each and every Tuesday, engagement is welcome for you to share your thoughts, share your questions. Whether you catch me live or on a replay, if you feel that this information can not only help you but help someone else, please feel free to share. That is much appreciated. So before we jump into like really talking about time bias, are you already aware of what your relationship is with time? Like we know what time it is in the morning, depending on where you are, what time you're receiving this message. We know what time we're expected to, do certain things. But what is your relationship to time and how are you introduced to time? So, we could go into real big thinking because we're leaders and we're big thinkers as leaders and talk about how time is a social construct. But time is a social construct. It's something that we can't get back. However, it's rigid. We can also be chasing time, but it is a structure that is put in place to help you organize how you can have that non-biased situation and being more productive in the aspect of not procrastinating and having the correct intention in regards to how it is that you show up as a leader. But your relationship to time and how you treat the structure of time usually comes with assumptions or recognizing your value and recognizing your capability in a situation. So when you think about your relationship to time, how were you introduced? How were you taught the responsibility of being on time or being, respectful of time? So most of the time people will say, I'm on time if I arrive 5 minutes early, or I'm on time if I arrive at the time that they say. But if you arrive 5 minutes early, you're still 10 minutes late, because 15 minutes would be on that I'm arriving on time. You're allowed to get yourself settled, separate from whatever it was you dealt with before, you came into that particular space, and you're able to recognize how what things you may need to put into your work situation so that you can be successful. But then there may be times that you're chasing time because you hit the snooze button a couple minutes too many times. You may have hit the snooze button, and then therefore, if you've hit the snooze button, then you're always chasing time for the rest of the day for those minutes that you chose to hit the snooze button. So if it was 5 minutes, it was 15 minutes, or whatever, as a leader, your relationship to time is that you don't really respect it. And so then therefore you have a bias to following the social construct, the expectations around the time limits or things that people put into place so that you can follow the structure, you can comply and understand what your capability is in a situation, and begin to understand what you're capable of without making assumptions that end up projecting you into a place where you are more successful. And if you have had a variety of different situations in life, that some could be traumatic, some could be mind altering, or that you just lived in the essence of chasing time, then you may end up recreating that, and you're recreating chaos within your own mental, your own system, your own things that it is that you do. And that chaos creates unsettled energy and not resting well, such that you are always fatigued, or you're always, like looking for something that is missing. And in whatever that is that's missing, you tend to misread how much time you actually have. And so when you misread how much time you actually have, you end up doing yourself a disservice and creating this time bias. So when we procrastinate and we're not, we're doing like time thriving situations or time robbing situations. The robbing situations um, is that you're always finding a distraction to how it is that you successfully, motivate yourself, how you successfully, make sure that you, are preparing for whatever. So a robbing situation could be that you knew you needed to get up at XYZ time and you hit that snooze button. And then when you hit the snooze button, you're still trying to do every single thing that you had intentions on doing in the time frame that had gotten up, versus resetting the table and realizing, okay, now I need to reconsider this and do this differently. So how you set your tone of your day, how you start your day, usually should start the night before, because that success ritual and planning you into your schedule, effectively looking at your resources that you have for what it is that you need to get done, goes with understanding what you need to do the day before. Then that way, when you wake up and when you're hitting that snooze button, you're not chasing time and trying to figure out which place should I start. You have already created the structure that time gives you, the rigidity or the structure that you need, that you're not making assumptions on what thing should I do first. And definitely when you think about thriving, the thriving part is loving on yourself enough that night before that you have put into place the plan, the intentionality, the space, you've blocked out when those time things can actually occur throughout your day, but that you've also included yourself in that process. Yourself in if you need to take a walk, yourself in if you've been working at the computer for so many minutes. I don't want to say hours, but I know sometimes it's hours. You need to get up, stretch, do something different so that your mind can begin to not wander into multitasking and not getting anything done. Because the moment that you entertain and invite multitasking, you're robbing yourself of the authentic productivity that you can really have. So if there is something that's like emerging and just like, bugging you, like, okay, no, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. Instead of multitasking, the best way to be would be, okay, I know I had this time block to get XYZ done, but this keeps bugging me, keeps coming in my head. Either etch out what your plan is for the day to see when you can do it, or in your scheduled break that you get up from the computer, that you get up from your task, that you end up taking that walk, doing your exercise, just say, okay, let me just get this out of my head right now. But allowing yourself not to have it robbing you of what's a productivity task. So sometimes business owners might say, is it an income generating? If it's income generating, then of course it's productive and it's something that's thriving. However, you have to be mindful of how and what your relationship to the structure of time truly is. Because what happens when you're not paying attention to recognize how time, manifests, how time works for you, then you end up creating biases on what your realistic capacity can be. And if you have challenges with what your realistic capacity is, then you are creating your own glass ceilings, and you're also creating yourself being living within a box of limitations. Because if you have not taken that opportunity to kind of restructure how it is that you're going to function within the time frames that you have allowed for you in your day-to-day strategy, would be, recognizing how procrastination comes in, how multitasking comes in. The moment that you invite multitasking, you are also inviting a layer of anxiety, because now you have stretched yourself way far beyond what your capacity is. And because you're still trying to do it and multitask within it, you end up fighting yourself, but you're trying to multitask and do everything, which creates that unrest in your heart. Your heart may be beating fast. You may, experience some headaches. You may become dehydrated. These are the physical thoughts and feelings that you may begin to experience when you were thriving because you were in purpose and in intention. However, something triggered you to say, okay, I'm going to do all three of these things at one time. When you look at the end of that time block, you usually end up realizing that you have lost the opportunity of being successful in that particular time frame. So a book that's being referenced on one of the platforms for recognizing how it is that you do your time is Redeeming Your Time by Jordan Rayner. Thank you, Dr. Reginald, for sharing that. A book called Redeeming Your Time by Jordan Rayner. My understanding in the context of this conversation is that may help you to building what your personal capacity is, how you can reframe and understand if you're thriving or if you're robbing yourself of the opportunity of being successful in the day, recognizing what you have the ability to do. So when you look at time bias a little bit more, we have to look at what is a bias. What makes time have biases? The thing that makes time have biases is that we have the tendency to misunderstand or misrepresent what it is that we can save and what it is that we can what we losing. So we feel like we're losing something if we're not, again, in that multitasking. If we're procrastinating, we're definitely losing because we're delaying something that either we don't feel we have all of the information that we need, but yet are we asking that additional information? We are procrastinating because we may not feel totally capable of what it is that we put ourselves into and what we put in that time structure. So then if I procrastinate, I delay my fear to confront and ask those next level questions. When why be fearful when you can really gain a better understanding such that you can be successful? But sometimes asking those next layer questions, we think challenges our capability or challenges the perception of our ability to do the job. However, what it really does is it gives us the opportunity to see how our perception of do we need more time to complete a task, or does a task actually take less? Because sometimes we'll set say a 2 hour time frame for a task, and it really, when we really turned all the extra noise of procrastinating and multitasking down, it really only took 30 minutes. When we really just sat and took off the blinders and eliminated anything that was containing us with handcuffs and the mindset that we approached the task with, our perception for the increased time, it gave us a cushion, but we gave ourselves too much time because we may have doubted our ability to really do that task, because the times that we have done it before, or someone has told us that it takes X amount of time, but your skill set, don't sleep on it. Never sleep on your skill set. So yes, it's good to cushion time, but if your skill set means that you can get it done in an hour or 30 minutes, then maximize that. Maximize that and learn what it is that you can delegate as the leader that you are, or what it is that you can delay. Because if that task does not take the 2 hours that you set aside, and you have another task that actually needs 3 hours or needs more time, then see if you can flip that so that your productivity is not from a biased standpoint, so that you can be more successful. So the perception of knowing what time frames that you actually need is a trial and error, but it also takes having that personal inventory on what it is that you are capable of doing. That personal inventory of trusting your ability to make a decision and using a rational time frame. What is rational to you may not be rational or a clear expectation for somebody else. So if you feel pressured in how it is that you are responding to like a certain person or a certain task or a certain opportunity, then you need to sit back, take a step back and say and understand, what is that from? Is it reminding you of the time structure rigidity, or when you were chasing time, how you were introduced to time? Is it triggering something in you to make you believe that it has to be irrational for it to be right? Some people believe that some things just have to be chaotic in order for it to work well. You may have been successful and gotten to this point where that has worked for you. But at some point, you are containing yourself in a limitation of a box and having limited mindset around your true, authentic capability. And the goal is that you recognize that so that you don't have to limit yourself in that particular way, and that you can understand that if you feel pressured, then is the pressure self-imposed where you're robbing yourself, or is it imposed by not asking that next level question? When you ask that next level question to the person who has placed a time expectation in something, that's actually a level of you leveling up as a leader and thriving, and showing that you have that big thinking that we as leaders do, and that you're looking outside the boxes and figuring out how it is that you can be successful in working this through. So, in working it through, you want to always make sure that you are in a time thriving situation. So, a suggestion from the book that I just mentioned earlier, the book title was Redeeming Your Time by Jordan Rayner. One of the suggestions that we need to first do a data dump. I'm always suggesting that we do a data dump, because when you do that, say on Sunday when you're resetting the table and you're setting the goals and intention for the week, and I say Sunday because usually that's the day that I identify and I connect with you around resetting the table, is write down all the things that you got to get done. And it doesn't have to be in a line. It could be going all different types of way, because that's also a social construct that we have learned and we have kind of operated in, and that everything has to be so rigid and so straight and so organized. But if you're doing a mind dump, let it be as messy as it has to be, just long as it gets out. So writing all the things down that you have to get done from a personal, professional, family, community, social, children, whatever your expectations are, helps again decrease that over functioning that you as a leader can sometimes fall into, and creating that time bias. If you're over functioning, it's because the organization for your mind, heart, and soul has not been given the clarity that it needs, and you really may not know how to do that. So knowing how to do that is key. But once you get those things written down, then you can also prioritize. You can realize if it takes that hour, that 2 hours, if it needs a full day. But the thing about wait, okay, so let me stay with this thought first. So when you set and prioritize those deadlines, you begin to stop the ability or stop the practice of your mind racing. Mind racing is anxiety. Mind racing is over functioning. Mind racing is you having an unaddressed, unidentified trauma trap that usually puts you in freeze mode every single time this time structure is put into place. So your mind is not free to think and create and build a new process in whatever you're working on, because now you become paralyzed from that over functioning process. So when everything is on your mind and is not written down, absolutely, you will either forget some things, you will create a burnout situation, and you will also create just non-productivity and feeling like you're again always chasing time, like that snooze button. You're always chasing however many minutes that you push that snooze button in the morning. And if you also did not do the strategy for your day the night before or on that Sunday, maximizing what each day was going to have the capability of, then you're constantly putting yourself in a time robbing scenario. So when you're thinking about how it is that you rob time, you have to think about your relationship to time. Has something told you that if you did not multitask, if you did not procrastinate, that you were going to miss out on something? And if you thought that you were going to miss out on something, then how is it that you can ever get into the place of being stable and being that confident leader to walk unapologetically into a space that you are activating in practice your ability to be that CEO of your life, to be that person that manages the things that, work best for you? So sometimes when you have to miss out on the fun or miss out on what it's going to take for you to build permanent stability in your schedule, you have to look at missing out on temporary fun. So missing out on probably a special lunch, a time with friends. You're working on something like very, very specific. It builds that permanent stability. So if you're building permanent stability on how it is that you function within time, then it's not a loss. It's not a loss in any, particular way. It's definitely a win, because you have done a personal inventory assessment to understand how it is that you understand how you work, because nobody can tell you best on what works for you without you knowing what works best for you. So then let me just go to a couple more biases, and then we're going to go into the strategy. So a couple more of the biases is being like heavily opinionated or one-sided. So anytime something is brought to you and you're looking at the bias of time or the bias of availability, is this situation like being heavily opinionated? Um, are you relying on information that has not been confirmed or like substantiated? Like, are you somebody giving you these lofty ideas, but they haven't narrowed them in for you to niche in to how it is that you could be successful? And then the outcomes that you're looking for, have you make sure that they, that you're dealing with facts, or factors that are real, that are not overshadowing the intentionality of something with the tone or the language that's actually being used. So when you look at time, one of the things is that we've been conditioned to believe that time for our workday takes 8 hours. And we've been conditioned for that because it's like it's 8 hours for work, 8 hours for ourselves, and then 8 hours for rest so that we can start the day all over again. But life has kind of shifted, and we're able to see that we can be most productive in a time block of 3 hours. That what we once got done in an 8 hour day, depending on the task, depending on how large of a of an expectation and deliverable that it is, we can get that done in 3 hours. So when you are staying late extra at work, when you are saying, okay, well, let me just do this one more thing, you are missing out on that time rich element of how you can be thriving in other aspects of your life. If your 8 hour day can be convinced for your productivity and meeting all deadlines is in 3 hours, it can be done in 3 hours, then how much more successful or how much more could you get done if you really stepped up with the intentionality, not sleeping on your skills, and recognizing your true, authentic capacity with your relationship to time. Because we give ourselves more time, but then if you really look at it and say you take a moment today or within the next couple of days and you track how you authentically use your time and say you have some coffee breaks, you're able to take that mental wellness break where you take a walk, you go call a friend, call a loved one, whatever it is that you do. If you do a full inventory and when you're doing that successful look at the end of the day of how you utilize your time versus how you robbed your time or robbed yourself of a different task, you will begin to see, did you really need the 8 hours to do XYZ? Did you really need the amount of time that you gave yourself? Because we don't always give ourselves credit because we don't always celebrate the things that we have achieved and the things that we have been able to grow from. So when you look at the strategic approach to time, is that you want to make sure that you plan what you actually need. Know with clarity and certainty what exactly it is that you need. From a leadership strategist standpoint, a coach, however it is you want to identify it, you have to schedule when and where you're going to get things done. I've made reference to doing it on Sunday for the week, but life happens. So doing it that for Sunday for the week can be one thing, but then each night, each day, before you leave the office, before you finish whatever task you're working on, look at what your wins are from that situation and then begin the things that you did not get done versus beating yourself up, overthinking, over functioning in your mind, creating those anxious and overwhelming moments. Begin to schedule when you can get those done in another time. And when you schedule in another time, be it the next day or another day throughout the week, arrange a realistic expectation where you know that you can clearly deliver with excellence to do that task or project unapologetically. Again, not robbing yourself of knowing what your authentic capabilities are. So I hope that that makes sense because that planning your time, scheduling it out, arranging what's realistic, when you do that, you end up thriving. You end up growing in a way that you know where it is that you can stretch your capacity, where you can put in some extra breathing room, because the key elements in making that shift into you being a successful leader, however it is that you enter into that conversation, we're all leaders in some aspects. And in some aspects, we have life hacks. We have life that comes and interrupts us in different ways. So it's like we have to always be mindful of how it is that we can understand what our skill set is. Again, not sleeping on our integrity, not sleeping on our capacity, but doing that personal inventory to realize how we can move forward. So when you're overcoming time bias and you're looking at how it is that it can function best for you, other than some things that we've shared, like be aware of realistically what it is that you could do, and be confident to tell someone, this particular task, I have a couple things that's preceding it. When is it that you actually need it? Because someone else's urgency doesn't rearrange and remap what it is that you already have planned. Let them know there's another task that we've already discussed that I'm working on. When is it that you need this particular task? Other than you trying to infuse both things because of the sense of urgency that you feel from the outside person, you end up taking on their energy, taking on their misreading of time, taking on their misplanning and misrepresentation. And now is now impacting not only the project that you are working on, but it's also impacting the project or how it is that you can support them meeting whatever goals it is that they have. And when you take on other people's energy, it actually influences you to making that best decision that you would make, um, if you didn't have that impact of an interruption. So if there is a past experience that that somebody has maybe questioned your time or said that you weren't managing time well or something like that, are you carrying that load, that conversation, into every conversation that's layered with how it is that you plan, how it is that you show up, how it is that you influence the deliverables? If you are, you need to confront that residue and begin to say, okay, in that situation, what were some external factors or barriers that caused you to have a delay? It could be the urgency of another team member or another situation or life kind of impacting and shifting the narrative where you had to do some things a little bit differently. But when you have stretched yourself and you made the deliverable, you did it successfully. You just needed additional time. So was it a time rich experience for you to realize that you needed more time to complete that task? Or was it a time robbing thing that you included more things on your plate that didn't fit the time frame? So being curious and recognizing, okay, there's no boxes, but let me have a real personal inventory around how it is that I can be successful. And then when you're doing that, you are creating that growth mindset. You're not limiting yourself in a box or with handcuffs or allowing the detours of your leadership to kind of get in the way and put the ripples in the matrix that don't allow you to move forward. And then when you do that, that growth mindset helps you realize that what is making you uncomfortable. Now, being comfortable does not honor growth, because if you're comfortable, you're not honoring the ability to kind of stretch outside the limits. So when I say identify what makes you uncomfortable, identify what triggers you or causes you to have a different thought or feeling about completing a particular task, but then learn from that personal inventory on what it is that you need to put in place so that you can become consistently uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, because in the uncomfortable spaces you're always learning something about yourself that you didn't know before, or you're learning something about the environment that either serves you or doesn't serve you. And we want to be thriving, so serving you versus robbing. If you have to embrace the opposite, then be open to the opportunity that the way that you may have thought of approaching this time situation, this structure, this social construct may not be the best. So be open to the opposite or to a perspective that somebody may offer you that's going to give you another time rich experience that can kind of help you settle and grow and working through situations. So the thing is always unlocking your silence in the things that's not serving you, and realize that when you don't approach time in a proactive and a productive manner, then whatever you're trying to do always seems impossible until it's done. Like it doesn't, like no matter what it is that you put in place, it's always going to seem impossible until you truly authentically get it done. Because if you're chasing time, you're multitasking, you're procrastinating, you're thinking and rethinking and overthinking the process versus having that structured time and saying, this is when I'm going to get XYZ done. I'm going to turn off these notifications on this phone. I'm going to set a block of time that's going to allow me to do that. And I'm going to function with the level of discipline that's going to give me the integrity to understand how it is that I need to grow moving forward, so that I can not only eliminate the idea of being passed over and not promoted, but being in that thriving situation where you can recognize how it is that you show up for you. So I hope that this was a time rich experience where you were able to identify and see, possibly where you can enhance and grow in different capacities, but then also recognizing that time biases can be self imposed. It can be something that you have learned from however it is that you were introduced to time and the structure of time. But then also, who are you robbing at the end of the day? Yes, you may be robbing that productive task that you want to get done. But if you are sitting and experiencing levels of anxiety, overthinking, not feeling like you're ever getting anything done, and you're doing more than 8 hours in your workday, then are you really working within the intentionality of what your capacity is? Because when you sleep on your own skill set, you don't realize that we have been conditioned to believe that we needed 8 hours to do something, when really your productivity of your day could be done in 3. So if you could do your workday in 3 hours without all of the excess, overthinking, procrastination, thinking of fear, multitasking, being pushed into spaces that are not serving you, then how is it that you can gain control and not really experience that micromanaging layer of challenges, of somebody always looking over your shoulder and saying, okay, how is it that you can function better? And then, do you have your boundaries? Are they healthy? Are they respectful? Or do you lack the boundaries that you actually need? And people are easily able to create that chaos that you live with in your life, and you just kind of function from one chaotic moment to the next. If you function from one chaotic moment to the next, you will benefit from a reset. You will benefit from a breakthrough of that mind dumping activity that we mentioned earlier, where you can gain control over how it is that you function as a leader, because the control that you think that you have is very chaotic, which means that are you really putting forth 100% of excellence in everything that you're doing? Do you need to rescript what you have capacity to do from a personal, professional, family, and community aspect, and begin to reassess what time really looks like for you? And so that is my nugget, my friend, for this Tuesday morning. Um, that's my nugget. I do have a quote. My quote is, I never lose. I either win or I learn. Quote again, I never lose. I either win or I learn. So, what are you learning different this week? What are you learning that's going to level you up? What are you learning what are you putting yourself in a space of when it comes to time? How do you need to reset your day? Because resetting your day the night before may not have happened, because this might be the first time that you're hearing of that. But if you were to take the next 15 or 20 minutes after we wrap up here, and you scripted out your day, how is it that you are functioning in your day to day? Um, so yeah, any thoughts, any questions? The quote just again is, I never lose. I either win or I learn. I don't know who is the quote author, but when I came across it, I was like, that's a banging quote. I need to share that. So thank you for, if there's any thoughts or any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Otherwise, I thank you for joining me on another Tuesday morning cup of coffee or tea, some people with smoothies, for your leadership nuggets and hanging out with me on a Tuesday morning. Again, we are here each and every Tuesday. Oh, I forgot I had something else. Each and every Tuesday at 7:30 in the morning, to 8 typically, where we talk about just various things in regards to how it is that you show up. So yes, I did remember that I had something else. Someone had sent this to me, and I'm not sure, like they just sent it to me. So a very nice definition of time. Time is slow when you wait. Time is fast when you're late. Time is deadly when you are sad, and time is short when you are happy. Time is endless when you are in pain, and time is long when you feel bored. Every time is determined by your feelings and your psychological conditions and not by clocks. So have a nice time always. So that was shared with me, and I figured I'd share it with you guys since we were talking about the biases of time. Um, and when it talks about like the psychological conditions, sometimes we welcome and invite things that don't serve us well. And so we have to realize how are we using our time and what is it that we need to do different. So if you're scrolling on social media and you said I'm only going to be on here for 15 minutes and then you look up it's been 2 hours, you need to figure out how you can rescript your time unless you were doing something very, very productive towards you growing and participating in certain things. So until next week, I do thank you for joining me. If you find that you would like to, do that mind dumping, figure out what the strategy is that's giving you handcuffs and making it limited in your regards to leveling up in your career, feel free to schedule your breakthrough session with me. And then we can, kind of assess and identify what is holding you back in your leadership journey. What is putting you on pause in your ability to level up? Is time bias really, really impacting your ability to ask those authentic questions, to ask that next level information? What is it that is your roadblocks? The GPS is in place to infuse into your conversation, to have clarity with your goals, to position and plan yourself more effectively so that you can have the strategy and the skill set, recognizing not sleeping on your skills so that you can level up unapologetically. So again, thank you for another Tuesday. If you catch this on the replay, I will come back and share some love and share some feedback to your comments. And again, I'll see you next week. Take care.